I know that we're in this new year, so I want to extend a belated Happy New Year to all of you. And I'm going to tell you what I've been praying for all of us. By the way, if you don't know who I am, my name is Glenn. And it is just such a joy and an honor to be a part of this team. And what an incredible team that they are. When I leave, nothing ever, it's just like, it just keeps going. And it's an incredible thing when you can leave and no one really actually misses you. It's an awesome thing. And I mean that sincerely, because we don't have a B team, we don't have a C team, we just have one A team. And so it's an incredible thing to see all of what's happened in December and what is now happening early into this year. And here's what I've been praying for while I've been away for us this year. That this year, 2019, it's not a sexy number, is it? 2019. But it doesn't matter about the number. It's just the fact that, oh my goodness, God has done it again. 365 days are this world revolved around the sun, and we got to see another year. Just last night, the earth rotated from night, and we got to see another day. And I'm praying that this day and this year is an exceptional one. I'm praying for my family, my marriage, my children, my grandson. I'm praying for all of us that this year is an exceptional year. Exceptional. Why? Because I don't want it to be mediocre, do you? I want it to be exceptional. There's never before been a 2019, and there's never going to be another 2019, so let's make it exceptional. And when I think about the people that will come into these doors, people who are exploring the Christian faith, people who for the first time are sort of trying to wrap their minds and get their hearts around what this means to have a relationship with Jesus and who he is. I think there could be nothing more exceptional if that they stepped into that relationship for the very first time and they received the greatest gift humanity has ever received by the hand of God, and that is salvation. That's exceptional. I'm praying for people, and some of you are sitting here who are just now sort of you've made the slow turn, or you're still turning and you're returning back to a relationship with God. You kind of distance yourself for whatever reason, and you've distanced yourself from a community like this, and you're just starting to come back. Welcome. I pray that this year for you, as you return, will be exceptional, and you recapturing and rediscovering the beauty and the love of God that he has for you. And then those who stepped a long time into that relationship, a long time ago, we never really kind of did a spiritual holiday, so there's no really returning for us, but we just keep walking and we keep journeying. I'm praying that this will be an exceptional year for you, and that you will exceptionally grow in maturity and joy and love in your relationship with Jesus. That you're not the same person now in January as you will be in December. That this year will be an exceptional year of growth and deepening your love and relationship with God. So that's what I've been praying for us. Is that a decent prayer? Are we okay with that? Because it doesn't matter if you don't like it, I'm going to pray it anyhow. But that's what I'm praying for. And we started a series last week, and James kicked us off and did a great job of giving us an overview out of the book of Exodus. And what we're going to be doing through the book of Exodus is we're actually going to have several mini-series, and we're starting the first of these mini-series. Now, I wanted to talk about pace and priorities, because I'm thinking this is Joburg, and we really need to get a healthy dose of pace and priorities before this year really starts churning. And it actually probably has for many of you. And my team, as I said that, they're like, that's great, but we want to kind of change the name from pace to priorities and just really call it a mini-series called But First. But First. And I was like, that sounds great, but why? And so they explained to me, because I personally am not on social media, and they said it's kind of a way that people on social media communicate. So it's the turn to the start of the new year, and people kind of post their New Year's resolutions or their intentions or their goals or their plans, and they'll say, this year I'm gonna really lose weight, but first, cake. Oh, okay. So then they explained it, or I'm gonna begin this year getting up in the morning early to start my day with God. Give me the first 20 minutes with nothing else. But first, coffee. So we are now entering into a series called But First. And since I'm not somebody who's on social media, and maybe you're not like me, and you're not cool as well, but this isn't about coolness. This is actually more about holiness. Because the but first that we are going to look at right now is but first, glory. But first, glory. And so we're going to take a look at a passage at the end of Exodus that really speaks to this whole understanding of glory. See, we live on the continent of Africa, so I'm going to take us to the summit. The summit of your life, the summit of my life, the Kilimanjaro of your life and mine is God's glory. And not only his glory, but the fact that his glorious presence wants to dwell among us. And what happens when the glorious presence dwells among us is what we're going to take a look at. So if you start in the book of Exodus, at the very beginning, God's glory shows up in a burning bush, a bush that burns but does not get devoured or consumed by the flames. And God's glory is shown to Moses. Then you move on, and the glory of God shows up in a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night as he travels in front of his people, leading them through the wilderness. Then when they get to Mount Sinai, the glory of God comes down in an all-consuming fire. And then in this last chapter, chapter 40, we're going to see how God's glory descends over the tabernacle, or what I'm going to call a movable traveling sanctuary, where they would set it up, worship, and then when God would want to move, they would move, reset it up, and this glory cloud would cover over the tent and fill the tent with his glorious presence. So let's take a look in Exodus chapter 40. Then the cloud covered, that glory cloud, Shekinah. The cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And Moses was not able to enter the tent of meeting because the cloud had settled on it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Throughout all their journeys, whenever the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle, the people would set out. But if the cloud was not taken up, then they did not set out till the day in which it was taken up. For the cloud of the Lord was on the tabernacle by day, and a fire was in it by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel throughout their entire journeys. But first, glory. But first, glory. Listen, the glory of God with his people is not some reassuring extra. It's not some comfortable add-on. It's not even this special compassionate luxury. The glory of the Lord is a necessity for the people of God. It was for them, and it is for us now. That's why, but first, glory. Why is this glorious presence among his people a necessity? That should be our question. Why is God's presence and his glorious presence a necessity for us? Well, as God had rescued and saved his people out of Egypt, he delivered them, so he saved them. So God does that now. He rescues, he saves, and he delivers us. For what? To be the same person? No. And here's the necessity. The necessity is that God saves us in order that he might sanctify us. Now that's a big fancy word, but what does that mean? God, in his presence, his glorious presence, dwells among us so that he might make us holy. Sanctification is a process of being made holy. You, if you are in a relationship with Jesus right now, you are a work of holiness. He hasn't completed it. Some of us have got a lot longer to go than others, but you're in process. It's always good to at least be in the process. And so the necessity for you and I to be in the presence of God and his glorious presence is absolutely essential for you and I, for God to transform every aspect, every area, every category, every element of your life and mine, so that he can make us whole again and everything in our lives holy, so that he can take unholy beliefs and make them holy. He can take unholy attitudes and make them holy. He can take unholy patterns and cycles and habits in our lives, and he can replace them with holy ones. He can take our thoughts, our words, our deeds, and he can take those unholy areas of our lives and transform them into holy ones. This is the Kilimanjaro of all priorities. If you get this one right, you are on the page of getting everything right in your life. See, because it's not about, and believe it or not, so brace yourselves, it's not actually about putting God first. Because God is not just first, because when you say God is first, you're saying that there's something else on the list. So I would ask the question, what could possibly be if God is first, and that's good, it's just not complete. If God is first, what's your close second? Because there is no close second. To a glorious God, nothing comes close to being second. So God is not first on the list because he's above the list. He says, I am the first and the last. So he is the list. So if you get this right, if you prioritize, but first, glory, and giving God the fame, giving God the credit, giving God the applause, saying, no, I'm not going to take it. I'm going to deflect it and reflect it back on the one who's responsible for transforming my life, the one who rescued me, the one who's put me in process. And it is all about giving him the renown, and the fame. It is all about glory because he is above any and all list. And if you get this right, God's presence, his glorious presence, gets to those places in our lives that only he can get to, and he can replace them and transform them with his holiness. The next verse that I want you to take a look at is verse 35. It's a unique verse, and the verse is and Moses was not able to enter the tent of meeting because the cloud settled on it and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Did you catch that? When I first read this, I'm sort of going, this seems like a contradiction. Wait, God wants to be with us. He wants his glorious presence to be among us, and it's our need and our necessity. We need his presence so that we can be made new and made whole and made holy. So then why is it when the cloud descended, this glory cloud came down, covered, filled, there was no room left for Moses to go in? It's a good question. I asked it of myself. And I kind of just kept meditating over it, and then all of a sudden, it hit me. When God's glorious presence fills the space, in this case, it was a tent. Later on, in the days of Solomon, it was a temple. Later on, in the New Testament, guess what? It's a body. Whatever space that God's glorious presence wants to cover over and fill, it means there's no room left for us. It means there's no room left for Glenn's unholy understanding of himself. There's no room left for Glenn's unholy selfish ambitions. There's no room left for Glenn's small, tiny little plans and dreams. There's no room left because God's glorious presence fills and covers so that there's no room left for me, and then all of a sudden his glorious presence takes over and says, here's your ambition, here are your dreams, here's your direction, here's how you need to think about yourself. You've been thinking about yourself in unworthy terms, but I made you in my image. You are gloriously made in my image, and you have such a poor self-image. I need to transform that so that you understand that you've been made with infinite worth, incredible value, and tremendous significance. And so God leaves no room for us to sort of kind of mess around. He's going, no, I'm going to invade all of those unholy areas and thoughts and attitudes that you have about yourself and others, and I'm going to leave no room for you so that you can be transformed. You know why? Newsflash. It's God saying to Glenn, hey, Glenn, it's not about you. Now, some of you would say that, but we don't really live it. Oftentimes, we say, hey, it's not really about me, but that's code for really it is. I've had to counsel people in marriages, and people will be like, he will say, she thinks it's all about her. And then all of a sudden, shots fired. She goes, he thinks it's all about him. Can you imagine how different their marriage would be if they said, it's all about your glory? And in your glory and in your glorious presence, you begin to change our unholy understanding of each other and ourselves, and you take our marriage and you make it holy. You sanctify it. You transform it. Can you imagine what the workspace, the workplace would be if people weren't about fighting for their little territory and their personal agendas? If they just said, it's not about me. It's about God and His glory. What a difference that work environment would be. I'm telling you, but first, glory, if we begin to live this out, your 2019 will be exceptional. The next thing that I want to take us, so it's the glorious presence is about making us holy, and then there's this abiding. See, the glory cloud, the Hebrew word is Shekinah, and it's translated abode, like a house, like a dwelling. And literally translated in the Hebrew means the presence, the abiding presence of God. Is that just something for the Old Testament Israelites? No, you can actually fast forward, and Jesus picks right up with this, and he says in John chapter 15, abide in me and I in you. It's God's agenda to dwell among us. Why? Because it's a necessity for us. And not just to make us into His image, and not to just abide with Him so that we can be made holy, to abide with Him so that we could enjoy Him, the one who made us, and enjoy life to the full. So when God's abiding presence fills the space of your life and there's no room left for you, some of you might be thinking, but then does God not care about my own personal identity? You think that somehow you'll lose your identity. I actually would put it to you, and watch this, that you will actually discover the real you in the glory of the presence of God. You'll find the real you, because God is now going to reshape your misconceived notions of who you are, your misunderstandings of how you're to live, your misguided direction that you decide that you want to set the course for in your life. God is actually going to help you understand when He fills you with His glorious presence, you will find that you are never the truest self than you are in that moment. In John chapter 8, when Jesus says, when the Son sets you free, you're free indeed. When you abide in the presence of Jesus daily, not just on a Sunday, not just in a small group, not just when you have your occasional serving opportunity, those are all wonderful. He meets you. Remember, just like the tent, you're a traveling, moving, breathing temple of the Holy Spirit. So you take them to work, you take them to play, you take them to the dinner table, you take them to the bar on Friday night, you take them everywhere you go, you take them on your road trip, you take them to the beach, you take them to the bush, because He is the God who is with you. And as He's with you, wouldn't it be so tragic, the God who is with you, that you and I do not abide and spend time with Him? But first, glory. Abide in me, and I in you, says Jesus. Because you know why? He describes this picture in John chapter 15 of a vine. And the vine is Jesus, and He says, you and I are the branches. A branch apart from the vine can do nothing. A branch that is abiding in the vine is now being transformed, is getting the nourishment and the change so that it will produce the fruit, and the right fruit, the holy fruit in your marriage, the holy fruit as you parent your children, the holy fruit in your job, the holy fruit in your reflections, in your meditations, the holy fruit in your thought life, your attitudes, your words. Oh my gosh, God could spend a lifetime on just our words, not just because they come out of our lips, but because they proceed from our heart. But we want holy fruit and holy words that build others up and encourage them, not tear them. So that doesn't happen unless you're abiding in. But first, glory. The last thing that I want you to see, because I am very conscious that it is 1,000,000 degrees. And I know this, when I used to speak to high school kids, the mind can retain only what the butt can endure. But I also know when the summer heat is up, we tend to just go, and all you can think is pull. So let me wrap up by giving you one last nugget, but first, glory. But if the cloud, in verse 37, in verse 36, throughout all their journeys, wherever the cloud was taken up over the tabernacle, the people of Israel set out, and vice versa. And when it settled, they settled. When the cloud lifted and moved, they moved. When the cloud settled, they camped out. All throughout their journeys. Do you know what's significant in that? God's glory is a necessity to make us holy. God's glorious presence is meant for us to abide in Him so that we can produce holy fruit. And when we are in the presence of God and spending time with Him, you don't have to ask, watch this, you don't have to ask, where are we going next? You just have to wait for it. If you're asking for God's guidance, it's not a bad prayer. But the one who knows you best, the one who knows where He's going to take you, you don't have to ask Him for guidance. You simply have to wait for Him to show you where you're going to pick up and settle down. How different it is when you and I say, the priority of my life is the glory of God, not me. He gets the credit. He gets the fame. He gets the encore. He gets all of the applause. And I get to abide and enjoy His presence now and forever. What a difference our year would be. 2019. I would absolutely guarantee it on the authority of God's word if you lived your life daily with saying, you're above all, and I want to abide in your presence. Your 2019 will be the most exceptional year of your life. Let me close with one verse, and then I'm going to pray. Our friend Pablo, or Pubs, is being prayed in at his church up the road as the lead pastor today. I've yet to figure out how to be in two places at once. I try, I schedule it, I double book myself all the time, and I never am able to be in two places. So I sent Pubs this week this verse. It's the verse that I'm praying for him. It's the verse I'm praying for me. it is the verse I'm praying for all of us. Isaiah chapter 26, verse 8. It doesn't begin with, but first glory, but it says something very similar. Yes, Lord. Isaiah says, yes, Lord, walking in the ways of your laws, we wait for you. Your name, your renown are the desires of our hearts. And I said to Pubs, this is what I want your life to be as you lead these people. That you would say, yes, Lord, over everything. Yes, Lord. But first, glory. Yes, Lord. And I will walk in the ways of your law. And God, I will wait for you. And God, I want your name and your renown to be the desire of my heart. Because it's not about me. It's only and always about you. You're not just first on the list. You are the list from first to last because you're above it all. Let's stand and pray.